Opening the pathway to your guidance is the topic of conversation, as always, at this time slot, Tuesday, 3:30, with Brighid Murphy over there. I think I'm supposed to go like this on this side, the opposite side. She's on this side for me on my computer, but she's on that side for you, for all you're watching. So it's like Vanna. Here she is, and we're talking about stop, listen, and slow down.
Yes, thank you, Jacqueline. When we talk about opening the pathway to our guidance, we often don't recognize that in order to communicate with spirit, we need to do something different than we're already doing, right? Or else we wouldn't be trying to connect with spirit, because we'd already be doing it and we'd be aware that we're doing it. So whenever we want to change something, do something new, add something new in, we need to first stop. And stop means a few different things. There's just a few different ways to translate that. Stop and realize that if we want something different, we need to do something different, right?
Or how about be something different?
Or be something different. Yes, absolutely. Because the changes that we want to make in our lives only live in a fantasy land if we don't actually take action on them. And that goes for losing weight, that goes for getting a college degree, that goes for connecting with your guidance or connecting with spirit. Yeah.
So stopping is in the sense of just stopping. See, to me, you just said we kind of need to do something and take action. But I feel like stopping means stop taking action. Like to just stop and get present before you do anything else. But am I misinterpreting that?
No, you know what? I don't think so. I think that there are many ways that we can use the word and the idea of stopping. So we can stop, slow down, get present, which is what I think you're talking about. And and we can stop and really take a look at what's going on. Like really pay attention to something different, which is a part of being present. But the first thing here is that we need to pause, stop, interrupt our regularly scheduled show of I have to do laundry and all those things. We need to stop that, interrupt that, so that we can decide to do something else.
So it's like stop the button on the CD or the podcast or the playback, right? Whatever the scenario is that you are repeating.
Yes.
Just stop it. Just interrupt it.
Interrupt it. And we can stop, pause, or interrupt in a few different ways. We can stop and sort of take an overview of our life, right? And see how we want to be living. And we can also stop at different points throughout the day and kind of take a little inventory, slow it down so we can actually pay attention to the signs that are around us. But we have to sort of stop. Sometimes that means stopping our bodies. Sometimes it means stopping our brains. So, we have to stop in order to notice that there's something else happening.
So when you mentioned about slowing down, yesterday I was sort of talking with Martha about Mercury going retrograde. Does that fit in any of your conversation about shamanic healing?
It depends on what we're talking about. So the planetary influences are absolutely at play. When we're talking about shamanic healing, I think of soul retrieval, extraction work, shifting energy, and a lot of that is due to trauma
Mhm.
A lot of the stuff that I work on is due to trauma or stuck patterns that have very little to do with what's going on planetarily and more to do with what's going on generationally and what's going on human to human. Not to say that there isn't an influence from the planets, but it wouldn't be my primary focus. So,
Right.
So in that regard, no, I don't think Mercury retrograde is part of the conversation.
Excellent.
But in other parts of shamanic practice, which
Mhm.
involve creating relationships with the natural world, with the unseen world, in the other parts of shamanic practice where we are communicating
Mhm.
with the natural world, that's probably where the conversation about Mercury retrograde would come in.
Okay. So I think that's just important because, like, there's this, I mean, people are talking about different things, right? In terms of that conversation, they're going, oh, they've got the full moon and you've got Mercury retrograde and it's the end of the season and there's all these things that are affecting what's going on,
Yes.
and nature is naturally slowing down. And as much as I see around me, because we both, we're not very far from each other here in the Northern Hemisphere, that nature is definitely going within. There's all this power within. Like if you go by a tree now, you can sense the energy that's deep sort of in the roots compared to being all the way up in the tree, in the leaves. So it's a different sensation. And for me, that's this sense of energy coming within is like a newness, but it's that stopping. It's like, it seems that things are stopping. They're slowing down. And so you can make up a story from my perspective on whatever is doing it. But ultimately, as you go out as a shamanic healer and connect with the spirits, you're always getting the big picture and realizing what the big picture is, regardless of how the winds are blowing and what the planetary, right? Okay.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's a good point to note that right now the nature is appearing to stop, even though nature never really stops. It looks like it. So now is a really good time in the Northern Hemisphere to really start to pause and slow it down. And it's a really good time for introspection. It's really a good time to interrupt our normal patterns of go, 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 and interrupt our normal patterns of trying to figure everything out so that we can pause and move our focus into our guidance, what our bodies are really telling us, what our intuition is telling us, for folks who, talk to their guidance, what our guidance what our spirit guidance is telling us. Because it's known in many traditions that now is the time where we can really hear, because the busyness of nature is taking a break. So it's a good time for introspective work. But we have to allow ourselves to have a pause, and we have to not fight that pause or not fight against ourselves. We naturally want to slow down in the winter. People eat a little more, they gain a little more weight, and so we fight that. We want to always maintain the same level of energy all the time, and we're not supposed to. We're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to slow down. So if you're feeling like you want to slow down, even though the holiday time, if you engage in it, just wants you to rev up, and then it drops you in January. But if you're feeling like you want to slow down, good. That's what this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere is for. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've my experience is that there's a sense of quietness inside me that happens at this particular time of year. So it's almost like, as you say, you're listening more intuitively to my guidance, myself, and it's just this presence and noticing, like, as much as the trees look like they've stopped, there's more space. Mm-hmm. Right? And in that sense, there's more space. There's this feeling that I'm listening to things that were never there. I noticed today, even in my walk with the dogs, the pond in the back, right? I was like, it's so cool to me that water. So living here, but even by the ocean and the rivers, they're moving like this, spring, summer, they're moving. And as November comes, it's like they just somehow get silent and stop moving. Right? It's like the water doesn't move anymore. And, and logically speaking, the water is still moving. The tides are still coming in and going out. It's not like they're frozen, but it's like everything has just, it's like they stopped having a party. The water fairies.
The system of the ecosystem is interconnected. The animals are going underground, right? The insects are going underground. So the whole ecosystem that the water is a part of has shifted. So even if the water is moving at the same rate, the energy that is alive around and within the water is quiet. So you're going to feel that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just, it's a different experience, even being out with the stars at night, where there is silence in the summer at night, but there's a different silence. And I guess what you're wanting people to communicate is in stopping, when you stop whatever it is you're doing, like a simple thing like doing the laundry, then you allow yourself to start to get present, and that's what you're starting to listen to. What else are you listening to?
Yes. And it's in those times where we stop, where we create an opening for our awareness to grow. And it can be simple. I really always go back to the practical approach. What are some examples of what we mean? Well, as you walk through your day, whether you're walking to your basement, you're walking to get the mail, you're walking in your office, you're walking the kids, the dog, whatever it is, slow your pace down. Walk slower. You have your normal pace, and it may be fast, it may be sort of, whatever it is, slow it down. Because you're consciously making a decision to slow things down, and your body is actually being slowed down, which will slow everything else down. So I don't think very many people do that consciously. Okay, I'm going to go down the basement to get some decorations out.
Right.
How fast am I going? Let me slow down. I'll tell you, it sounds simple, but it's hard to get out of our patterns. That's why I say you have to stop and recognize, okay, I'm going to try these things. I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to do it differently. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've noticed with many of your clients that you may be encouraging them or giving them the guidance or helping them learn from their guidance, that they're getting messages to slow down, but they still haven't accepted it. And then something happens that they're almost forced to slow down, because it's like the spirits have been saying, slow down. If you're watching this, you're getting slow down, stop, listen.
It is, yes, most of the people that I work with, clients and students, live busy lives. And even if their lives aren't busy in the same way maybe my life is busy, they're still busy because we live in a society that says go, 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 go. Mm-hmm. And we spend a good amount of time talking about why it's so hard to slow down and exploring some techniques and some practices to help them slow down, because not only are we fast-paced, we're somewhat addicted to the fast pace, and our productivity, our self-worth is tied up with our productivity, and our productivity is tied up with how fast can we go, how much can we fit in. The whole system is off, if you ask me. But
in the Western world, yes.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to. Yeah. So yeah, most of my clients need to slow down. It's hard.
Yeah, and if they don't take the messages, they'll usually discover all of a sudden they're totally stressed, or they all have spontaneous job loss, or something that just relationship ends that they were totally unexpected. Something just to say, whoa, you know what?
Yes.
Wake up.
And let's wake up before we have an adrenal failure, or before we have some sort of biological response that forces us, into some sort of a treatment or living differently. I know for me, everything that I teach is because of what I've learned through experience. I don't always talk about my life experience every single time, but when I was probably about 10 years ago, I was living a very busy life. I had a full-time job. I had a part-time job. I had somebody that I was supporting her daughter had cancer. Her 13-year-old daughter had cancer. So in addition to the full-time job, and if anybody knows me, I give 110% whatever I do. So the full-time job, the part-time job, I was running back and forth into the city to go to the hospital to do healing work with this 13-year-old child who had cancer. And my system was being taxed. The cortisol that was being released in my body was way off the charts, and it started to affect my nervous system. And so eventually, after a couple of months of that, it actually didn't take too long, I started to feel like I was vibrating. No caffeine, naturally just vibrating, like there was something under my skin. And I felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown. Mm-hmm. And I wound up actually going away for, it was at least a week. I went to my shamanic teachers who host spiritual retreats so that I could just unplug and relax a little bit. And so I know what we do to ourselves. And my hope is that we don't get to that point where we're that stressed out. I never let myself get to that place anymore. My body won't actually let me do it. I think once you pop from stress, you can't go back. So stress and the go is really, really harmful. And so I don't do it that way anymore. I've definitely slowed my life down so that I can continue to be here.
I think that's an excellent description when you said when you pop. So when anybody's had that situation that pops them into awareness of what's really going on, they experience something new. So that pop is like the stop that you're talking about, right? It's a forced it's a forced stop, and then you're able to listen and you're able to say, hey, you know what? This feels better. I'm noticing the difference in how I'm feeling when things are slowing down. And you start to institute and integrate different ways to communicate with your own guidance.
Yes.
Do things differently.
Yeah. So walking slower, as simple as it sounds, will bring you into the present and open you up to what you might not normally see. We're usually looking straight ahead, and oftentimes guidance from spirit comes in the side, comes in the back, comes in from the bottom. And if we slow it down, we can sort of catch what's coming in on the sides.
Sorry, it was just said to me yesterday as a gentleman, and he said, he was in traffic. And he was like, oh my gosh, like, why is there's like so much road rage going on? Right. He sort of said, I said, God, like, what is this with the road rage? And he had the thought that said, turn to your right. And when he turned to the right, he saw this man sitting on a park, like on a bench, like a bus bench, not a park bench, a bus bench. And as he looked over there, the man just smiled at him and waved. And he just thought, okay, it all depends on where you look, right? Where you look.
Yes.
As you said, to the side, and there you got the wave and the smile, but what you notice. It's very
and somewhere he decided, he asked a question, I do think a question will always magnetize an answer. Mm-hmm. And when we slow down, we can hear the answer. Mm-hmm. But it does matter which way you look, and slowing down your pace of walking can let you realize that you can turn to the right, you can turn to the left. Simple everyday things that we do differently open us up to spirit. They just do, Another thing that we can do is change the rate of speed at which we talk. So, and anybody can do this. I can do that right now by just slowing down the speed of the way that I talk. And I can be mindful of it in conversations with my friends and my family. I can be mindful of it when I'm working with clients. Everyone can be mindful of how they talk. I have a friend who talks very slow. And when I listen to him, I sometimes find myself, okay, internally, get to the point already, you know? And so that's my needing to speed things up. But what I notice is this person does everything with a real incredible presence because he's not in a rush and his pace is slow and he takes his time and he's incredibly connected to spirit. He gets insights all the time. Not to say you have to talk really slow to get insights, but it really is helpful to slow your physical body down in your walking and in your talking to to allow more in. Yeah.
Well, it was Gandhi that spent more time meditating with the more his to-do list grew. The more time he went within, the answers come in. That's, I think, my experience and probably your experience is when you're in the connected phase, when you realize you're in that zone for people, you know, whether it's is that things just naturally flow. And to me, that's why I spend so much time making sure that I'm connected, because I know I save so much time and energy and money and everything because the universe is running it. So the universe is making sure Bridget and I are together at the same time, or, you know, I'm meeting the person at the store, or there's no lineups, or there's no traffic. It's just being present to go, do this now. It's so much easier.
And when you're talking about taking time to make sure that happens, I say this before, but I want to say it again. I don't spend the majority of my day meditating, right? Mm-hmm. I spend 10 minutes in the morning, more if I have it, but pretty standard 10 minutes in the morning, sitting quietly.
Right.
And I receive all sorts of insights during those 10, maybe 15 minutes. And it's not because I'm so incredibly gifted that I can, it's because I show up and do it every day. I show up no matter what kind of mood I am in for 10 minutes in my healing space, at my altar, and I quiet myself down. Anybody can do that. Anybody can sit for 10 minutes. Yeah.
And that's a good point, because I, to me, Gandhi's day and age, like, you know, is that same sense as, I don't want, communication was delayed, let's say, because nowadays we're connecting all around the world and things can happen simultaneously. We're very more open and multidimensionality to all the spiritual frequencies out there. And I say all of them because there's a ton of them, mm-hmm. right? And you're helping people connect to their spirit guide, right? Yeah. For their life. It doesn't have to be anybody else's life, yeah. Just your life. And that's the key thing, is you want to be aligned with your frequency. So it can happen in 10 minutes. It can happen, like I would say, just in that sense of desiring it to be connected is part of the equation. You have to want it.
Yes.
And then be open to it. And start to notice it and accept it. And then it's like a snowball. And then, as you say, it's not that you're super gifted. It's just that it's so routine. Your body almost naturally aligns like a radio receiver.
Ooh, yes. Absolutely. I like that. Yeah, like a radio receiver. And I know that anybody with can do this. So slowing down the way you're walking, slowing down your talking. Another thing to slow down, and I know this is going to be hard for a lot of folks, is your scheduling. Chances are, the reason why you don't get as much done as you want. It's not because you're procrastinating, although we do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you're overscheduling. So schedule less in your planner. That will naturally help you to start to slow down. And I'd love to hear people's responses to that. I want to know, like, are you able to put less in your calendar? Are you able to leave extra time? Right? Because those are the moments where spirit comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that worked for me eons ago is, because I was like, yeah, I gotta have every minute booked, is so I then would schedule in, okay, this is my workout time, or I scheduled like 15 minutes extra of driving time that I thought it would ever take to get there or something. So if it did work out like usual, I had that extra time. It was sort of like a forced way to try to fool myself into the fact of making time for myself.
Yeah, I love that. That's a real simple, that's an easy thing to, well, that is a great idea to implement. I don't want to say it's easy because it's not always easy, but it's a really wonderful idea to implement.
There were times I remember going, you know what, I just faked this one out, right? Like, you're like going, I don't need to do this one because I know I booked it, but it did help me start to go, oh, I got to leave now, and then you'd realize, oh, I'm here early, I have some time. Whereas instead of just showing up right for that next meeting. So in slowing down for the holidays, because as you said, there's this whole fever going on in the sense of people, it's Christmas, I got to go shopping, and everything's gearing up to have you party and, be in that festivities continually, and then you get dropped. What would you encourage people to look at and address for themselves?
Okay. So when it comes to the holidays, we have this little, sometimes big cord that goes from our heart or our belly. You can't see, right? But it's a cord attached to us that plugs in. It plugs right in to the chaos of the holiday. You've got one
Christmas lights
that plugs in like a Christmas light to the chaos of the shopping.
Okay.
And then you've got another one that plugs right into what your family thinks you should do. And then you have a special one that plugs in to the guilt that you're not doing it right and that you have to do it the way you've always done it. So first thing to do is to pull the plug just like that. Imagine that you are pulling the plug from what you're supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to be shopping. Pull the plug out. I think we could probably have a whole conversation about this. But pulling the plug out, giving yourself permission right here, right now to say, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do this holiday differently. And not only am I going to do it differently, it's okay to do it differently, even if it's painful, even if I feel like I'm going against all of the grains that I was raised with. Yeah. And by doing that, then we can talk about slowing down. But we can't talk about slowing down during the holidays until the plug comes unplugged.
And when you say we could talk a lot about it, because a lot of people already have this whole story, maybe it's a 3-volume set.
Oh yeah.
Of why they
special edition.
Pull the plug.
Yes.
I had actually had a conversation with my dad earlier this morning so he's back in Ontario. He's 88, and he would like us to come back for Christmas, right? I'd love to see him, but I had to say, Dad, I'd love to see you. What's going on here in Prince Edward Island for Christmas and all the activities and the caroling and helping out with the food bank and the hampers. And I really feel I'm being of service. And so love to see you, but Christmas feels right over here in what I value. And he was like, yeah, I get that. So my other daughter was like, well, Grandpa, why don't you come visit here, for Christmas? Oh. He's like, yeah, I'm not really keen on that one either. And I'm like, you know what? There's no decisions that need to be made right now. we're just saying, this is what I'm feeling. You and Christmas don't go hand in hand this year. Okay. So there's going to be something new that's going to happen. And whether we visit you later on or however, but it's just going to be different. And it was really cool that he was so, I get that.
Jacqueline, you said it right there. Something new is going to happen. Mm-hmm. We have globally something new happening, right? Mm-hmm. We have a lot of new things that are happening. Letting it be new and leaving some space for the new is really, really key. I know from some of my family members who are used to doing things the same way every time, they get mad, they get very upset when everyone doesn't follow the protocol of what they want to do.
Right.
And I'm all about, let's try something new. Let's do something different. Mm-hmm. And that is where magic comes in. That's where change happens. And that is when the excitement and the fun and the mystery comes back into the holiday.
Yeah. And I mean, really, I think it's back here when you say about pulling the plug. And we didn't even plan this, by the way. This question was never even decided.
Oh, no, not part of
it. So I thought it was pretty cool. You got your cords right there. Like, yep. But that whole idea of if we've triggered something in you now by saying you got to pull, when Bridget said you got to pull that plug out, and you've got the story of a belief system. So that's where you need to really look at. And that probably is your moment for healing so you can have something new. Because if you're just feeling like, oh, good, and that's the breakthrough.
Yeah, there's a huge breakthrough. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about holidays and energy next week. But for as we close up this week, I just want to reiterate that stopping to slow down and to listen so that you can receive more information from your guidance is what you want to do. And the simple ways to do that are to slow your walking pace, to slow your speech, the way you talk, and to leave extra time in your schedule. All of those things will help to slow down, which creates an opening or a new avenue for spirit to come in and for your guidance to actually be opened, awakened, revealed, however you want to, phrase it. Yeah.
So, as a recap,
yeah,
you're all going to take out your planners or your phones right now.
Yes.
And mark in Tuesday, 2:30 Eastern time next week, where you will stop and come listen to us talk about how else you're going to make it through the holidays as you slow down and enjoy this beautiful time of year.
Yes. Perfect.
So goodbye.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, Jacqueline. I'm going to go pull some more cords.
I love you. Bye.
Bye.